All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Ostrowski, and I work in EGLE's Environmental Support Division. And I welcome you to a public meeting tonight. This meeting's on Hazardous Waste Management Facility, Republic Industrial and Energy Solutions, LLC. So glad you can be with us tonight. We've got about 21 people logged in. Looks like someone's on the phone as well, and I'm sure we're going to have a few more people join us. Just want to run through a couple housekeeping things in case if you've never joined us for a virtual public meeting before. Excuse me. We keep all the lines muted throughout the presentation portion. And then when we have Q&A at the end of the presentation, we'll explain how we're going to do that. But for right now, they're all muted. We also are recording this meeting just like we do with all public meetings, and we'll be posting it up to our YouTube channel in just a couple days. So you should be able to go on EGLE YouTube, EGLE YouTube, and find the recording there. So if you have somebody else that wanted to attend but couldn't make it, you can just send them the recording. I just say that that's more if you have a question tonight, if you want to make a comment or question, you can click the little raise hand icon in your toolbar. You can type it into the Q&A box, or if you're on the phone, you can hit #2. And oops, and with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Rich Conforti, and I'm going to have Rhonda share her screen. So Rhonda, you can share your screen, and Rich, you can go ahead and take it away.
Good evening. Welcome, everybody. I'm Rich Conforti from the Hazardous Waste Section of Materials Management Division. Today, we're here, as Jim pointed out, to give you an overview of the facility's hazardous waste operations. Then we'll also go into the outline of the hazardous waste operating license, the renewal application review process, what we at EGLE do to review the application. We're also going to give an opportunity for questions and answers with a panel of EGLE Materials Management Division representatives. I will now introduce those people. The first person is myself, is Rich Conforti. I'm the supervisor for the Engineering and Program Support Unit. Rhonda Blair, she's the Environmental Engineering Specialist, who's the project manager and engineer for this project. She was the one who will be reviewing the application, and along with Mark Messina, the staff geologist assigned to this, Sean Shields, who's the environmental quality analyst for this project, and Todd Zinda, he's the compliance inspector from the Warren District Office. We also have Jeremy Pepin here. He's one of our new engineers. He's been working with Rhonda to learn how to do these things and move forward as our engineer for the state of Michigan. So in our agenda tonight, we'll go through the regulatory authority, facility description, the application requirements, the compliance summary, and the license application process. And then we'll go through question and answers, and Jim will present those, and then we'll adjourn the meeting. So now I'd like to turn it over to Rhonda to begin the presentation.
Just checking in on Rhonda. You there, Rhonda? I'm going to ask you to send a note to you.
Yep.
There she comes.
Are we all good on the screen as well?
Yep, should be good.
Yep, we're up to regulatory authority.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rich, and welcome to all of you out there in virtual land. We're glad that you could join us this evening. As Rich said, my name is Rhonda Blair, and I am the permit engineer assigned to this particular facility. What we'd first like to do is talk about the regulatory authority for the licensing action that we're discussing tonight. Michigan is an authorized state, having been delegated authority to administer the state's hazardous waste management program in lieu of the US EPA administering the federal hazardous waste management program. And the mission of our program is to protect human health and the environment, similar to the overall arching mission of EGLE. The hazardous waste management program is administered pursuant to what is known as Part 111, the Hazardous Waste Management of Michigan's Natural Resources Environmental Protection Act, which is also referred to as Act 451 of 1994, and its administrative rules. Another acronym that you may hear is NREPA. It's the acronym for Natural Resources Environmental Protection Act. I tend to just say Act 451 because it's a little easier to say and more memorable to most people. The 111 program offers cradle to grave regulation, and by that I mean Part 111 addresses requirements for those entities that generate hazardous waste. Depending on the level of generation, there are more restrictive requirements as the level of generation increases. It also provides for regulation of transporters, whether they are independent or associated with a treatment, storage, and disposal facility. And it also regulates treatment, storage, and disposal facilities such as the Republic one we're discussing tonight. I will be using a term of art further on in the discussion. Instead of saying treatment, storage, and disposal facilities, you may hear me say facilities or TSDFs. The Republic facility is located at 28470 Citron Drive in Romulus. What you see here on the screen is obviously the shape of the state of Michigan, showing you where Romulus is located. That is denoted by the white star. And then to the right, you'll see an aerial view of the facility itself. It is located south of I-94. 94 runs kind of in a diagonal direction here. And then the closest major intersection, which would be this way to the east of the facility, is Citron Drive and Inkster Road. Citron Drive does only go to the west off of Inkster Road. So in an effort to give you a better delineation of the next major intersection, if you were to go travel south on Inkster Road, the next major intersection would be Inkster Road and Wick Road. For those of you that are familiar with that particular area. Here you can see a figure of the exterior of the facility. I apologize, I do recognize that some of this print is very small. However, the fine print is not what we're discussing. That this is just a good overall view of the exterior of the facility. Wanted to point out a few key things. All hazardous waste treatment and storage does take place indoors. The plant itself is located within the circle that I'm drawing with the cursor there. The active portion of the facility is provided with security fencing. This area, it is the active portion of the facility, and if you were to drive by there, you would see tall security fencing surrounding the treatment building and areas where loads of hazardous waste would traverse the site inbound and then also leave the facility once they have provided their shipment to the facility in question. Also, the black area that you'll see on your screen, this denotes paved areas outside of the facility. It is unique in that the facility is designed for one-way traffic. transporters bringing waste to the facility would enter on one side of an entrance island and go around the facility in this manner. They would unload either here or here. There are 2 points depending on the type of containers or transport vessels, and then they would leave following a one-way around this way. Upon exiting, they would travel on the opposite side of the island here. So there is minimal risk of any type of collision of transport vehicles or other vehicles that may be on site, given the one-way nature of the paved areas. Here we see an equally busy diagram, and again, I know that it's busy, but it does illustrate the type of information we want to convey about the interior of the facility. This is a scale model of what the inside looks like, and it also provides some process flow information. The facility is equipped with an on-site laboratory. It is slightly off this diagram in the area I'm circling with my cursor now, but they do, pardon me, they do have an on-site laboratory. All unloading, whether it be for tanker shipments or container shipments, does occur indoors. If it is a tanker that is arriving at the facility, it will come around. There's a bay door here. It comes in and all tank unloading is done in this area here. If it comes in containers, whether that be drums, totes, or buckets, they would continue around the facility and enter approximately here. And this is the container storage facility. The majority of the shipments that are arriving on site are in the form of tanker trucks, so they would be doing all their unloading here. You'll see a suite of containers, or excuse me, tanks here. They're often referred to as RTs, or receiving tanks. There are a number of those types of tanks that receive incoming waste, depending on the nature of the waste. There are an independent treatment and storage trains for waste streams that are acidic in nature, and there are separate treatment trains and tanks for those that are basic in nature. So the facility is designed to keep those two waste streams independent of each other up until the time that they leave the facility for disposal. All treatment tanks are located indoors as well. Treatment is done on a batch process in these tanks. Primarily, the treatment involves pH adjustment or the addition of various parameters to have the fines settle out and remove any solids to make the waste more amenable for on-site disposal. The interior is all secondarily contained. There are secondarily, these tanks have individual sumps, if you will, to collect any material that might be released, whether it's from a hose or other appurtenance or from the tank itself. This unloading area here, although they're not shown on this diagram, is equipped with separate sumps to collect the material that may be released in this area. And then the container storage area over here also, has independent secondary containment, as do a number of the other treatment trains further on down the line to the right as you look at this picture of the treatment tanks themselves. There also is a generator accumulation area. That is in this area here. And the generator accumulation area is an area that is not subject to licensing, but I wanted to point it out because it is a place where hazardous waste is managed. The majority of the hazardous waste generated at this particular site are filter cakes from a filter press that is designed to remove any remaining liquids from the sludge that is removed from the bottom of the treatment tanks on a regular basis. And the liquid that is generated from the filter press process will go back to the head of the process and be further treated. The filter cake is placed in a roll-off box here and is actually sent off-site as an as generated waste by Republic. Moving on to the next slide. The facility does have specified operational and design capacities. These are capacities that may not be exceeded at any given point in time. Two types of containers could potentially be received at the facility, those being drums, which would also include smaller things like buckets, pails, or slightly larger containers such as totes. Regardless of the type of container coming into that receiving location, they are limited to 11,000 gallons of storage in that location. There is also an established capacity for receiving rail cars, and that capacity is 92,000 for a total container storage capacity of 103,000 gallons. As we mentioned earlier, there are a number of indoor tanks that store waste and others that also are employed in the treatment process. The interior tank storage capacity is 267,900 gallons. And from a flow through standpoint, the facility is limited to treating 400,000 gallons of hazardous waste per day. The facility is a commercial facility, meaning it accepts waste from various off-site business entities, and they are equipped to handle a large number of liquid hazardous waste codes. Some of those codes are characteristic and others are listed. Characteristic is identified as a D0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Those waste could be such things as toxic or reactive in nature. Listed waste are ones specifically identified by both EPA and the state based on the consistent nature of those particular generating processes or those types of waste. And they have other unique codes that are applicable there. All of these different waste codes are specified in the license, and the facility is not allowed to accept any hazardous waste that do not appear on the approved list of waste codes. On the right, you will see a series of photographs. The top one here, that is the interior of the container storage unit on the east side of the facility. As you can see here, it's pretty empty. It is, it traditionally has not been the major source of incoming waste. Second middle picture here, you will see a series of RTs. And right here is actually where the on-site laboratory is located. And then here there is a big bay door. So trucks delivering waste to the facility would come in here, Stop right here for laboratory samples to be obtained and fingerprinting to be conducted. And then based on those results, the waste is either accepted or rejected. Assuming that it's able to be accepted, the trucks would pull up in this area. Slightly off picture here is a bank of pump stations where personnel can dictate which receiving tank a given waste stream will be offloaded to. You do see a little bit of a sheen here. If you're wondering what that is, there's actually sheet, oops, I apologize for that. There's actually sheeting surrounding a number of the tanks in order to provide squirt protection in the event that there would be some type of release from the facility. The squirt protection is designed to direct any release material downward. And that containment I was talking about earlier for the tanks is in this area. So anything that would be released would be directed down there. You can also see, if you look closely, a few lines here, dark areas. These are the sumps that I referenced earlier that are designed to contain any material in the event of a release in the unloading loading area. And you can see in the third diagram here, this is just another view of tanks that are used in the treatment process here. They're often referred to as PSTs, primary settling tanks. And then there are a number of support tanks in this area that include product that is actually used in the batch treatment process. Right. Next, I'd like to talk just briefly about some of the requirements outlined in Part 111 and its rules. They do establish licensing standards in many areas of interest. Some of these include waste analysis. There are standards for conducting profiling of potential waste that comes in, where the generator or perhaps the facility, depending on the generator's request, would conduct analysis and submit that information to the facility such that the facility could verify that either on site or through a lab that the generator selects, and determine whether or not they can accept the waste. That waste profile is kept on site in the operating record, and it is required to be updated should the generating process change, or should waste arrive on site that is not consistent with previously filed waste profiles. The waste analysis plan will also address fingerprinting. Fingerprinting is a term of art that refers to the process of pulling a sample when waste arrives on site and running some specified analysis on that waste to verify that it is what is expected and it is consistent with the manifest that the waste comes in with. Next item that standards are developed for our inspections. There are specifications for various inspections in terms of the types of inspections and the frequencies upon which these inspections need to be done. They range from inspections of communication equipment such as phone and walkie-talkies to security fencing and cameras and lighting, the tanks and containers themselves, the secondary containment systems, and things like that. Next item is personnel training. This particular section, there are standards established for what type of training each person involved with the hazardous waste operations is expected to get initially and then on an ongoing basis. Next item is emergency preparedness and response. This set of standards addresses such things as preparing for and responding to an emergency. It talks about the types of communication devices that you need to have and who is responsible for responding depending on the situation. Talks about security protocols, and will also address the exterior arrangements that the facility has to establish with any emergency responders, whether that be police, fire, local emergency planning committees, and also any medical facilities that may be asked to respond by way of taking in those people that require medical attention. Contingency planning is just what it says. It's a plan that is looking at all of the potential issues that could arise at a facility and planning for how they would address those. It could be anything from a spill, a fire, inclement weather, the need to evacuate for some other reason, those types of things. It looks at a hierarchy of who would be specified as an emergency coordinator and who they would call, and it lists all of the various phone numbers of the different entities that could be involved in an emergency response situation. Also discusses things like emergency equipment and provides for post-incident revisiting of the plan and revising it as necessary based on how actions played out in the event the plan was implemented. There are also specifications for record keeping and reporting. There are a variety of different records that need to be maintained. So it will talk about the different types of records and the duration of time that those records need to be maintained on site, and also who needs to receive reports, consolidating those records, and on what frequency those reports need to be submitted. Reporting can take the form of an oral report, and if an oral report is allowed, typically there is a follow-up written report some period of time after the oral report is provided. When oral reports are specified, it's usually because the department needs to know about something right away and be able to respond. So it's important for those oral reports to come in, and then more detail can be provided later when detail can be put into writing and submitted to the department. There's also specifications for what's referred to as a closure plan. A closure plan can be unit specific and also site-wide. For example, at this particular facility, since there are 3 modes of handling the waste from an incoming standpoint, there would be specifications for closing out the container storage unit, specifications for closing out the rail car area, and then also the treatment and storage tanks. Collectively, those are put into a site-wide plan, and it will talk about things like waste removal, decontamination procedures, verification that a given piece of equipment or area is clean. It also includes estimates on the costs associated with either closing a given storage area or any other areas required at the site. and I guess I should just point out that closing doesn't necessarily refer to closing the facility unless it's done on a site-wide basis. There is an option, say, for example, should the facility want to close their container management unit, they could go through the closure process for that unit, yet remain operational from a tank perspective. Here on this slide, you'll see a number of more site-specific type standards that are established under Part 111 and its rules. There are standards for managing containers. They address such things as compatibility, stacking, releases, labeling, accumulation time, storage time, and those types of things. Similar requirements are established for the management of tanks and also for treatment processes. The main thing for treatment, since some of them take place, or the treatment takes place in tanks, overall the tank management standards will specify things for the tanks themselves, but the treatment process will take a look at things such as compatibility and any types of issues that could arise with the given treatment process. There are also provisions for conducting environmental monitoring. That environmental monitoring could include such things as groundwater monitoring, soil monitoring, and ambient air monitoring. There are also standards established for air emissions. This is a newer portion of the standards, and it addresses such things as air emissions from container and tank storage, or emissions that can come from process vents or appurtenances at the facility. There are provisions for corrective action. That is, again, a term of art. Corrective action is a fancy way of saying cleaning up any release of a hazardous waste from a hazardous waste facility or area of concern. This particular plan would lay out how the facility would go about assessing any impacts to the environment, ensuring that any impacts are appropriately addressed, and then how that information would be documented and submitted to the department for review. If you'll recall, I did mention that there are cost estimates provided for closure. There are specifications for financial assurance that do address such things as closure costs, as well as corrective action costs, and thirdly, liability protection, which is required for TSDFs. What the financial assurance is designed to do is there are a variety of mechanisms available to a TSDF. They can select which one so works for them, so to speak. And we would review that and make sure that whatever financial mechanism is selected provides enough coverage such that if the state needed to come in and close the facility, there would be funds available for the state to access and conduct those activities. They are based on third-party costs. They do not include any costs that might be realized by selling equipment or recycling anything. It's assuming complete closure and removal of all waste done by a third party, and no cost benefits are considered in making sure that those mechanisms provide adequate funding. All right, we'll move on to the next slide. Now we're going to kind of switch gears and talk about the licensing process. Just as specific standards apply to TSDFs. The Part 111 and the administrative rules also have specific requirements for processing a license application, from submittal of the license application all the way to reaching a final decision on the application itself. Just to give you an idea of some of the things that are addressed in the process requirements, talks about when an application needs to be submitted, who by appropriate agency and or staff need to receive a copy of either the entire license or a portion thereof, and who would be required to review that and provide comment. There's also provisions for conducting a completeness review and reaching a determination there. A completeness review is a review that is conducted to assess whether or not all of the components of the application are present. It does not look to the details so much as is there a contingency plan in here? Is there a waste analysis plan? We're trying to just make sure that all major components are present before we would initiate any further review. And if those components are not present, all time clocks stop, and then we would notify the applicant and ask for that information should it be missing. There is some public participation that is done. Some of it is not specified in the requirements, but is just done as a matter of policy. That public participation can take the form of notifying the facility mailing list and other parties that an application has been submitted, and holding informational meetings such as the one we're having this evening. The public participation is designed to provide an ongoing opportunity for public engagement by reaching out to the public at the time the application is submitted. We're hoping that any issues that we need to be aware of that are not included in the application, or any questions that the public might have, can be presented to us for consideration as we conduct the completeness review and then move on to the technical review. Oops, excuse me. The technical review, which it appears I may not have included in the slide, my apologies. The technical review is where, nope, I did do it. I apologize. I was getting ahead of myself. The technical review involves looking at those various components and determining whether or not there is sufficient detail for the department to determine that the operations are in compliance with the licensing standards. So there you're looking at not, is there, for example, a closure plan included, but does the closure plan address all of the units that are subject to closure? And assuming that it does, is there sufficient detail provided that we can ensure that a given area or the facility as a whole will be closed in accordance with the specified standards? The other item that we typically do at least once, usually more, is the project team will visit the facility to either ask questions, see things that might not be clear in the application, or just for the ability to get eyes on something and better understand it. We will conduct a facility visit. The project team consists of the permit engineer or engineers, the environmental quality analyst, and a geologist, and then also the compliance inspector located closer to the facility in a district office. I can tell you that the project team did visit the facility most recently on December 3rd. Since we do have some newer staff assigned to this facility, we thought it would be a good idea to get out there sooner than later so that as these reviews are being conducted, the newer personnel have had eyes on the facility and are better equipped to do that review. Pending the technical review generally results in a list of deficiencies or issues that require clarification. Those are provided to the facility in written form, and the facility provides a response to those deficiencies as well as replacement pages for the application itself. I can say that I have never reviewed any application that did not have a notice of deficiency sent. That doesn't mean that it's not a quality application. There are just a myriad of things that need to be satisfied, and sometimes things aren't clear or they're overlooked. Once we determine that a application is technically adequate, we would have a public informational meeting similar to this where there's an opportunity for questions and answers. And then we would also conduct a formal public hearing, which is specifically required, whereby which any parties can come forth and provide comments on the record for consideration before the department would reach a final decision. Those public hearings would be held either way, whether we are determining that the license application should not be accepted, or we're determining that the license should be issued and we're considering the draft license. Following the notice of that hearing is usually given about 30 days in advance. And following the hearing, we typically allow for 2 weeks after the hearing for comments to be submitted. We recognize that in some cases, people want to mull over what they've heard or perhaps do some research and take the time to submit written comments later. So there is an opportunity to provide comments up to a specified date. After that point, we would take a look at all of the significant comments, and by significant, I mean that are related to specific standards or requirements in law, and we would provide written responses to those, provide our findings to our management. Management would render a final decision, and then notification of the final decision, whether it be denial or issuance, would be sent out to the facility mailing list and other specified personnel or positions at the state and federal level. There's also other forms of communication that we have been doing more and more, whether that be social media, the department calendar, or via the web page that we create for specific licensing actions. I'm going to switch gears briefly and talk more specifically about Republic and the facility in question. Talk about, kind of provide you a summary of their compliance. The first thing I want to address is their licensing history. This particular facility was issued a construction permit by the department. Construction permit being specifications for constructing the facility from the ground up. It was not an existing facility when RCRA and the state program requirements came into being. Following the construction of the facility, an initial operating license application was reviewed and resulted in the issuance of a license to the owner at that time, which was Environmental Disposal Systems, or EDS. That event took place in December of 2005. Following that submittal, a renewal application was submitted and ultimately granted to subsequent owners, being Environmental Geotechnologies or EGT. That license issuance was granted in September of 2011. The facility was sold and that 2011 license was transferred to the new owner, that being Republic, in September of 2019. Licenses are issued for a 10-year period. So Republic did submit a renewal application. Those applications need to come in 6 months prior to the expiration of the license that's in place. Since Republic did adhere to those deadlines, they are allowed to continue to operate under their existing license until such time that a final decision is rendered on the current application. One of the things I wanted to talk about is that TSDFs are inspected on a quarterly basis. Those inspections are typically done by the district compliance inspector who is in the area of the facility. When those inspectors go on site, they are looking for overall compliance with the license itself and the conditions contained therein, and then any general applicable regulations that EGLE is authorized to administer. Some of the items that they're looking for, they do a visual inspection. So if there are tanks, they'll look at the tank systems, make sure they appear to be of sound integrity, no evidence of releases. They'll look at the containment areas for similar types of issues, containers, security items, make sure the fence is in place. They may do a check on communication equipment, take a look at the emergency equipment and PPE, a variety of visual things walking through the facility. They will also look at, do a record review. They may want to take a look at manifests, waste approvals, whether they're profiling or fingerprinting, to verify that the records support that the facility is in compliance with the associated standards. They'll take a look at inspection records to verify that those inspections are being done on the frequency specified and that those inspections are documented. Similar, they will look at training records, contingency plan implementation, things of that nature. Some of the, if there have been any issues identified, those are documented through what we refer to as notices of violation or violation notices, or other types of compliance communication. It could be a written letter or memo, things of that nature. Let's move on to the next slide. In terms of identifying and resolving compliance issues, the resolution is conducted either through communication, submittal of perhaps missing documentation, follow-up inspections, or in the event of something that is more significant, there may be an enforceable mechanism developed, such as a consent order that specifies a schedule on which certain actions need to be taken. Once those issues are resolved, we typically refer to those individual issues as RTC, or return to compliance. I can tell you that Republic at this point in time has no outstanding violations, and they are currently in compliance with applicable general requirements as well as license conditions in their existing license. And with that, we'll go to the next slide. And I am going to return it to Rich Conforti to handle the remaining part of the process.
Thanks, Rhonda. So there are a couple ways for you can stay connected to be get information on the renewal application here for the Republic facility. You can go to michigan.gov/EGLE Connect and then subscribe for updates on the EGLE's hazardous waste license and review for the Republican Industrial Energy Services application. That's one way to do it. You can also contact Rhonda Blair directly or myself directly. Rhonda's email address is up before. We can bring that back up again to show it, and along with mine and a few of the other facilities. So now we're going to start the questions process, and I'm going to ask Jim for some help on that, see if there's any questions out there in the chat, and if there's anything that people ask or go forward for, then Jim will unmute people as necessary. Thanks, Jim.
All right. Thanks, Rich. I'm looking out to see if we have any questions. I'm just going to share my other screen there. And I'm not seeing any questions right now, but thanks, Rhonda, for that presentation. We do have about 28 people or so in attendance logged in. If any of you have a question, feel free to type your question in the Q&A box on Zoom. You can click the raise hand icon and we'll go to you and unmute your line. Or if you're on the phone, I think we might still have a couple of people on the phone, hit #2 on your phone and that'll show us that your hand is raised and we'll call on you by your phone number so that you can ask your question. And I think what I'm going to have also is in the chat, just so we can make sure we have the contact information for Rhonda. I asked Christine's here with me today to help out. Maybe she can put the contact information in there since I don't have to slide up. So if you want to see that, you can. I'm just checking for questions. I'll give it another minute. And, you know, if you don't have questions, if you don't have any questions, that's perfectly fine. Rhonda has very, very good detailed presentation. So hopefully a lot of your questions, if you had them, were answered during the presentation. If you don't let this digest for a little bit, and if you have a question later on, remember, you can always contact Rhonda directly. On the screen, we had the link for getting updates. I'll put that up here again in just a minute. And that's another good way to stay connected with us. I'm just checking, and I'm going to check with Christine as well. Christine, did you see any questions come in? I guess not.
No, here.
Okay, all right.
None here, sorry.
Make sure I didn't miss something. All right. Okay, well with that, Christine did put Rhonda's contact information into the, and Rich's contact information into the chat for today. Want to remind you to keep updated on what's going on in this facility. What you do is go out on the internet, you type in michigan.gov/EGLE Connect. When you go there, it's going to give you basically you type in your email address and it's going to give you all these different lists that you can subscribe to related to our department. If you scroll down, you should find the one for this facility. And there's you check that box, you subscribe, and then when we send out information, you will get it on that facility. You can also subscribe for a lot of other good stuff on there too, to keep you connected. So with that, Rich, do you have any final remarks? That doesn't look like we have any questions. Turn back over to you.
No, Jim. I just thank everybody who's still here with us. I'll take a couple people might have a drop off, but I think everybody's here. Again, if there's any questions, let us know. Myself or Rhonda, although I do see there's 3 chats in there right now. So those are pretty much us, the geologists also saying if they want to, if they got any questions, they can ask them. We've got a good geologist on board. So that's what I see in the chat right now. So, but that's about it. No, I think it's good. Again, thank you for participation. This is something we want to get out so the public can see what's going on and how we're doing it.
Excellent. Thanks, Rich. And thank you, Rhonda. Like I said, we recorded today's session. So if you have somebody else that wanted to watch or might have missed it, you can always go onto EGLE YouTube and check it out. We'll be sending that link out. We'll be posting it probably in about 2 to 3 days. You should find it there. So I want to thank everyone for their time this evening and spending some time to learn a little bit about what's going on, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks. Good night.